So I'm going to call the meeting to order at 7:04. And we will start with a discussion with designLAB. So I'll turn it over to, I don't know, is it Ben, Marianne, Andrew, Bob?
Yeah, I'll be the I'll get us through the majority of the evening. If you could enable screen sharing, please, Tina.
Make sure the door's still unlocked. I know, but I think EJ, she just left. I'm afraid they locked it. designLAB. I see Marianne, I see Bob and Andrew.
Yeah, yep, you can, yep, designLAB. I'll change my name here. You guys know who I am, but yep, if you give it to designLAB, that should be me. Thank you. All right. So I think this evening will actually be a pretty straightforward evening. Our agenda, we thought we'd probably only need an hour. We'll see how it goes. But tonight is really kind of the icing on the cake and just sort of a overview or a summary of everything that we've been up to and where we've landed. So much of what you see tonight, you will have seen already. So I will go through it relatively quickly. Of course, we can pause and address any questions if they come up. And we have a couple, new pieces of content, but they're relatively modest. One is a summary of the community forum feedback from back on the 19th, I believe, is when we did that a couple weeks ago, just before Thanksgiving. And then the second piece of new content are just some very kind of modest refinements to Scheme C based on the feedback from the forum, but mostly feedback from Tina following the forum. So we'll talk you through those adjustments as well. Here's the agenda that you probably have already seen. Again, it's very much content that we've gone over previously. Here is our sort of overall schedule of what we have been up to. We are here in December on the 9th. It's our sort of final committee meeting to you all to present everything that we've been doing and hopefully give you all the tools and information that you need to determine which scheme and path you intend to bring forward to the town in the May 2022 vote next spring. Just like we did with the forum, and as you all know, we started out with our sort of overall assessment of both the library itself and the site and landscape. I won't go through these in any more detail than just putting them on screen here, since we've talked about them all quite a bit. But we did our assessment of the site and landscape. We also did our assessment of the architecture and the building envelope. Our engineering team came through and assessed all of the building systems, the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire alarm systems, and identified the need for a fire protection system. We also revisited the sort of structural assessment that was done previously and updated that based on our proposed schemes. And discussed at length, the programmatic needs or programmatic deficiencies that exist in the library now. So that was sort of our first step, just sort of assessing the building, the site, and laying out the challenges in front of us and what all of our proposed schemes hopes to react to and improve. As you know, we also had our community input process where we put these boards out at several locations around town. We got a good amount of feedback in a variety of forms, both physically and on the SurveyMonkey survey. estimate somewhere between 100 and 150 total participants. This is the same summary that we shared at the community forum that you all have seen as well, just sort of a kind of high level sort of paraphrasing, if you will, of the comments that we collected, and then the program spaces that would best suit those comments and the types of programs and functions that were desired. Another sort of summary of all of that data that we collected, and just sort of looking at side by side the different types of spaces that folks identified were appealing. And from all of that and the staff interviews and conversations with you all, we developed our guiding principles that sort of guided all of our design schemes that we shared with you along the way in their iterations. And from all of that, we developed our proposed program statement on the right, took the existing spaces and spaces that were desirable and sort of combined those to create our proposed program statement that all of our schemes sought to address. And then the new piece of community feedback, which was really fruitful, was the community forum itself. So as you know, we sort of presented all of the schemes very similar to what we're sort of overviewing with you all right now. And then we did a series of breakout rooms, 3 of them. One was sort of in person. It was myself virtually and Tina in the same room where you all are now, with just a couple folks who were there in person. And then group 2 and group 3 were completely virtual. And I think all 3 conversations were quite fruitful and good conversation. A lot of excitement, great feedback, just sort of some, kind of collective energy about the potential that the schemes represented, which was really wonderful to hear. So we collected, notes and comments during those sessions, and then, we've just sort of paraphrased them here for you. So generally, there was quite a bit of just overall excitement for the project, which was very kind of reassuring and gratifying to hear. There was a lot of interest in reopening the historic entrance and a lot of support for that idea. There's a lot of interest and support as well for creating meeting space within the library, this support space for staff to do all of the important work that they do and programming that they do. They liked a lot of feedback and positivity towards a new children's space and a dedicated teen space, as well as programmable outdoor space. That was all sort of all well received as sort of new spaces that a renewed Randall might incorporate. And then there was some, inquiries, if that's the right word, perhaps critique is the right word, or questions, just sort of talking about just the overall character of the edition, what it looked like, what its materiality was, how much glass there was it brick to match the historic building, and all sorts of questions like that. And, all great, feedback and, thoughts. But I think at this, early stage of the game, it's just something that we should all kind of think about, make sure that we remember that feedback and be prepared to sort of address it as the design, if the design were to progress.
Yeah, Ben, these kind of inquiries, I think, are better looked at as like how the community wants to be involved later on in the process. What it seems like they had a lot of opinions about them. And some of them were contrasting. And so bringing the community into these specific items would be great later on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Andrew. I think one of the important ones there at the bottom, there was a lot of folks sort of talking about what would happen if Common Road was changed to one way, and what that would mean for just vehicular traffic and all of that. So I think that, that is sort of a broader kind of inquiry that perhaps even just beyond the library building committee, that a lot of folks expressed some opinions about. Okay, so we were going to go through again quickly because you've seen them, and not much has changed with the exception of Scheme C, which we'll talk about. Just the overall concept design strategies that we have developed. So of course, as you know, Scheme A or Option A is the complete reuse scheme of the current space within Randall, both historic and the 1970s edition. There's no additional square footage created. Shifts programs around within that footprint to try to take better advantage of the space and rearrange things with better adjacencies. But does not quite achieve, as we know, all the programmatic desires. It does, reimagine some modest changes to the entry, sort of relocates the ramp coming from parking. It does reintroduce the historic entrance and reconfigure the landscape to that entrance space. Option D was the sort of expand up of the 1975 edition, reconfigures program within the existing building as well, but then builds over the mezzanine space and creates additional square footage on the second level of the 75 edition, achieves a bit more of the programmatic needs, but not quite everything. And we've talked at length about, even though you're gaining additional square footage here, just based on the footprint of the existing building, we're not really able to take advantage of it as efficiently as we can in Scheme C, just because of that sort of angular footprint. The rendering that we've all seen about what that might start to look like. And then Scheme C, as we know, is removing the 75 edition, of course, retaining the historic building, and then building a new addition in place of the 75 edition that is removed. Because we have the ability to sort of proportion and lay out that addition to best suit the programmatic needs, we are able to achieve all of the programmatic desires. And Andrew's going to just chat through a couple slight tweaks to this plan based on some feedback that we heard. And I'll say, as we've said before, this is a really good starting point for the next stage of this endeavor for you all in terms of laying out spaces, but there's still time, which we'll talk about at the end, to finesse things if this were to advance into the next design phase in the spring.
Yeah, so we were just going through everybody's notes and just wanted to respond a little bit to that, to some of the comments. So we did add restrooms on the second floor, and we also stacked them with the restrooms on the first floor for efficiency's sake, and centralized them as well in the building. And with that, we also moved the elevator a bit farther away from the historical foundation, which is just for ease of construction mostly. We don't know what's down there. It would be quite difficult to build an elevator pit right up against the existing building. And then we expanded the office on the first floor in order to just have more space, also have that space change. We understand that space is not very usable with its 8 walls anyway. And so we made the basement of that tower just a bit more storage. And then there are just some graphical changes that we made. So spaces that are open to below have an X below them. So it's easier to understand that it's a double height space.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. So pretty modest, but a little bit of tweaking that we've done. And again, there's plenty of time to finesse this further if this were to advance. The renderings that you have all seen, this is the sort of potential part of the children's area as in the second level of the new addition as you come up a stair with views back into the historic building. Here is what the historic building might start to feel like if with that entry sort of reactivated and looking through and past the tower to a new addition. Here's the exterior view that we have shared previously. And I think this, this view, very conceptual and very early design stages. It's starting to suggest materiality and kind of view into the new edition. But I think some people were reacting to, is there too much glass? What is the character of all of those materials? How does it feel like? So to, Andrew's point, I think that, is something that the community is interested in and, might be part of future opportunities for community input. So to summarize those, this is the same slide that we had in the community forum, sort of identifying the pros and cons, if you will, for each of the 3 schemes. I won't read through them all since we've talked through them previously, but it should give a pretty solid, just summarizing sense of each of the schemes and what each is achieving or not. The same programmatic diagram, and of course we know we're checking all of the boxes with option C. Option B gets pretty close, but there's some spaces that we're not quite able to fit. And this is the overall program and building size summary for each of the 3 schemes. And there is, some contingency, if you will, or flexibility, excuse me, in these numbers, just given the early stage of the design. B and C are pretty similar. The high end of the C range kind of surpasses the low end of the B range. So depending on exactly how things get finessed and the footprint of C gets to established, it can certainly equal the same amount of usable square footage in scheme B, but does just, again, we've talked about it a lot, but it's a kind of really important component of all of this because we have the ability to lay out that footprint and figure it out to best suit the programmatic spaces that have been identified. We're able to achieve all of them. So in terms of our preliminary cost estimate, we went through this, I think, with you all 2 building committee meetings ago and didn't go into the same level of detail at the community forum that we did, but we did share the overall costs at the end of the community forum. And we've sort of identified as that sort of those base costs for base building improvements and encode requirements that need to be done no matter what scheme or addition or level of renovation we're considering, and then built on top of that with site work, architectural improvements, building systems, and then of course soft costs, which we've spoken about in terms of what those entail, but here they are on screen, just what are in each of the sort of construction buckets, I guess you could say, the site work, the architecture, the building systems, and then what's all of the soft costs above and beyond that. And then here's how those numbers shook out per scheme in those categories. So baseline estimate to do just fix the stuff that needs to be fixed, modernize the building, get it up to building code. That's around a $4 million investment. And then we build up from there for each of the schemes. A is, of course, the lowest investment, and B and C are pretty comparable. Though C is slightly less. And then the side-by-side program summary. And a few of the summarizing or renderings for scheme C. And that's really it, guys. I know we've got an hour scheduled for you, but we don't have a ton of new content. As I said, we've got plenty of time to talk questions, answer any questions that you may have, and certainly plenty of time to talk next steps. We did share sort of this schedule with you all a couple meetings ago in the community forum, as what might come, or what hopefully will come, I should say, after the spring 22 vote. then we'll really get into a design process, a sort of traditional design process, if you will, after this programming and concept design phase, which we estimate will take about a year, plus or minus a couple months. And then from there, transition into bidding and construction, which I think, best case, that would be I would say a minimum of a year and a half, once a set of drawings went out to bid. So yeah, that's our summary for you guys. Can we pause and answer any questions or? Sure, Kat.
Yeah, I definitely have a couple quick questions, just so that I can answer really more when people in the community are asking me. In terms of so I saw that you had that usable square footage. That's not the overall square footage. That's just basically comparing what the additions are going to provide us compared to what we currently have, correct?
That's right. So when we say usable square footage, that's, the space, think of your, I don't know, your kitchen in your home. So that's, that's the space within the walls of that kitchen. So, there's other space that is needed for that kitchen to function. There's a furnace somewhere providing heat. There's an electrical panel somewhere that needs space. There's a thickness of the walls. Hallways to get you to that kitchen. So when we say usable, it's really the space that you can actually function in and use. And then above and beyond that, there's a whole bunch of other things that create what we refer to as the gross square footage of a building. That accounts for all that other stuff, thickness of walls and mechanical rooms and all the rest.
Okay, so basically, because I mean, I know this is going to come up, right? So the argument, I don't know if it's the argument to be made, but basically, even though some of these options are smaller square footage than what we currently have, it's got a better use of space because of the way that a modern building is being conceptualized. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, think about, if you were to design your own kitchen, just to stick with that analogy, you would lay it out the way that you want to lay it out. That would be the most efficient use of space. You might only want a counter that seats 4 people because that's what you need. And as we relate that to Randall, we need a certain amount of meeting room space. But if you were to move into a house, it might have a kitchen that has counter space for 8 people, and that's really not what we need. So that's kind of what we're juggling with, dealing with the footprint of the current 1975 edition. It does have equal amount of space as Scheme C, but we're not able to fit the puzzle pieces into it efficiently.
Okay, and then another follow-up on that. Does design C, option C, is that design still feasible with two-way traffic?
Oh yeah. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, totally.
So the building, there's room, there's space for option C, even if the road needs to stay unchanged.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And yes, we can, we can apply, you could really apply any of the landscape schemes to the building scheme. So scheme, A, the landscape here, that doesn't reduce the width of common road. It's still 2 ways. And you can imagine, the footprint of scheme C, we could still work with that. We don't need the space from the road to make scheme C work.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And can you clarify something? If you could go back to the square footage slide again.
Oops, sorry, I went the wrong way.
Okay, so doesn't it say the current square footage is 5,000 square feet? Or 4,500 square feet at the very top bar?
Of usable, yes.
So we're not losing usable space from going what the current building is to any of the options.
Right.
No.
Okay.
No, you're not. No. No, you're not. You're,
We're losing overall square footage, Denise, from what I understand, or at least that's the rumor that's been going around town. So I just need to make sure, like messaging around, $9 million in a smaller building is being portrayed correctly. So that's why I just wanted some clarification around that.
No, I get that, and I appreciate that, but I wanted to clarify that any of the options is
Sure.
more than what we have today.
Yeah, for sure.
That's actually, at our last meeting, I asked the question and the answer was 500 square feet less.
Right.
But I can't, and my eyes are
I
bad.
can make it bigger.
I don't think that this has the overall square footage. It just has usable.
You're
Right?
right. And it intentionally does not have the overall square footage, because, we were getting the sense that people were getting uber sort of focused on those numbers,
Right.
which, understood, because it's a big investment and you want to know how much square footage you're getting. But, the point that we're trying to make here is that there's still contingency, there's still a range that we could achieve with any of these, just the way we structured our cost estimate. We have a healthy, we talked about that, having a healthy design contingency built into that estimate for any scheme, for all three of the schemes. So, that gives us the flexibility that if we need to add a couple hundred square feet because, we realize 6 months down the road, we need to have an additional, collection portion of the collection, or whatever the case may be, like we have that flexibility to do that. So I know people are, really dialed in here on the square footage and what amount of square footage you're getting for the dollars. But I think the message should be that, the way the estimates are structured is that we have the ability to, finesse that as needed as the design progresses. We're not going to be able to add, 2,000 square feet to any of the schemes, but certainly, a couple hundred is manageable.
And without bumping into the road.
Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
perfect.
Yeah, we're not throwing away real estate. We're just more efficiently and effectively using the real estate that we have.
That's right.
Who'd have thought a triangular building would be bad at holding square books?
Yeah. Jim has something to say.
If I could, I've got a couple of questions, but I think I first just wanted to say that of all the options, I clearly like C. I really consider C to be the only option, and I like it. I actually like the fact that it's a bit smaller. It gives the impression of being not a Taj Mahal. I don't know. It just gives the right impression, and overall, I have a good feeling about this project. I have a feeling that I didn't have 11 years ago. I just want to say, I think the timing of bringing this to our spring town meeting in 22 is very, very important. I know we feel like we're on time, but I bet in April, there's going to be some reason that we're rushing. Because we just got done with one big project with Stowe Acres. I'm not sure when the school project is coming. This is our opportunity to try to get something like this done. I had a couple of things that I agree with you could get kicked to design, but I just think to make the best possible case in the next several months for fundraising and a town meeting, we should have a slightly more definitive idea about them. And I certainly am willing to come to more building committee meetings between now and May if that's necessary to answer them. One would be the exterior. I totally hear what you're saying. It's a detail that ought to be able to wait till design, but that concept drawing you have is incredibly important for fundraising and at town meeting. And we really don't want to put something up on a slide that doesn't resemble what eventually gets built. So maybe we have to be a little bit more definitive about what materials the exterior will be made of. The space question that Kat just raised was another one I was going to raise. I feel like I just need a slightly better answer, maybe a meeting at the library so Tina can show me what's wrong with the 75 edition and you guys can show me how how it's going to improve for usable space. I understand the concept, but I'm just a little confused on it. I think we need a meeting with the building inspector to really give us all, well, first of all, to make sure he's on board with the condition of the 1975 edition. He probably has the same opinion that our old building inspector did, which is fine, which is good to hear. But I think we all need a few talking points about what its deficiencies are. And then I would like to see a conversation at least start on Common Road. I feel like we can't go to town meeting and not have a better idea about what we're going to do there. People will ask.
So if I can add on Common Road, I mean, that's been my understanding, a discussion for a while in the police department. They were planning to pursue that anyways.
Yeah.
It has, we have started talking about it at the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee, because it is a concern, and we likely will pursue making that a one-way, regardless of the project.
Okay.
Whether or not it goes forward, but we have been having that conversation. So I do think that I can work with Traffic Safety Advisory to have some recommendations on that by town meeting, so that that can be part of the conversation.
Sure. My last concern is I know I'm going to be asked about whether we're going to have a heat pump or even consider it. And I assume the answer is that's the kind of thing we'll be talking about in design. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is, Jim. I think Tina asked us that because we had a quick debrief after the community forum a couple weeks ago, and she had a similar inquiry. Yeah, that'll be, all those types of conversations, these kind of really important design decisions will be part of once we get into the what I referred to as sort of the more traditional design phases. If our team were to be retained for this, for this effort, once we get into schematic design with our mechanical engineers from Fitzmyer and Tachi, who are the same folks who did the assessment, of course, they would come to the table with you all, hear about, what are your goals from a mechanical perspective, from a sustainability perspective, from an energy use perspective. And then we would work with them to propose, mechanical strategies, how do we heat and cool this building? And that would be much like we're evaluating 3 concept design kind of architecture options right now, we'd be, evaluating mechanical systems and kind of weighing the pros and cons of each and coming to a, path forward with your input. And heat pumps as a component of that system would certainly be on the table. Yep.
Yeah, so what Fitzmyer and Tachi typically do for us, and we can give you an example of this, they will chart at least 3 systems, and the evaluation goes something like this. First and foremost, energy efficiency, long-term ease of maintenance, but then the first cost. So we have all those things to consider. Sometimes the most energy efficient and best systems are the most expensive as a first cost. So they typically give us at least 3 options like that for consideration. And it will depend a lot on both the building's use, the way the program lays out and plan, and then how we construct the envelope in terms of amount of glass, level of insulation, all those kinds of things. But it's fair to say we will have an inherently, I think, efficient building. We have an opportunity to use natural daylight and all of that. So this building, from a mechanical point of view, is not complicated as some. Fitzmyer and Tachi also do a number of medical facilities, and that's a whole different level of complexity. They also do many public schools. So we will give you those 3 options to consider. But yeah, I agree. I think heat pumps and all predominantly electric system can be long-term the most energy efficient and possibly the easiest to maintain.
Okay, thank you.
We also have really cheap electricity in comparison to others. other
Yeah.
towns and use-
Oh, really? Oh, that's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
7 cents a kilowatt hour.
What's
Yeah.
rate in the Commonwealth? That's my understanding.
Yeah, yeah, and gas systems are very efficient, but we are moving into an era where gas prices are going to substantially increase,
Yeah.
Right.
at least in the short term.
Has anyone looked into the solar potential of that space? Because I don't think it has a lot of high tree cover around it, right?
It's a good question, Brian. I haven't personally, no. I know there are some, rather mature trees off to the north. But I haven't looked at that critically, but that could easily be something that's on top of someone's to-do list, kicking off a schematic design effort, to
Right.
evaluate that.
Yeah.
Off to the north is the best place to have trees if you're looking to do solar.
That is true. Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, can I ask another question that I'm sure you've gone through a million times before, but I just forget off the top of my head. With option C, what happens with that glass wall that's over the children's room now? Like, I forget what you guys had designed for that.
Oh,
That-
that goes out to the amphitheater? Oh, no, on the
No.
other side.
The other side, the one that leaks. I just was wanting to know what that's replaced with.
That will actually be removed.
Right.
And the basements will be a smidge smaller, and there'll be a light well installed. So it'd be really just a skylight, but it's at ground level.
Okay.
And that'll just kind of reduce the problems. It'll also expose that original facade, which right now has a bunch of ducts on it, and I think some duct tape as well.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
we just thought that would be the best way to actually kind of restore its historical significance.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So it'll
Yeah,
just
that-
be going straight down from the historical building to the ground.
And then, but there will be a light well kind of jutting out,
You're
just
using
right.
a word that I do not understand.
Sorry, a skylight jutting out to where the basement is now, to where that edge of the basement is now.
Okay. Okay. So like a ledge, and we're not going to be worried about it leaking again. Like, I mean.
Nope.
Okay.
I
I like
promise no leaks.
Okay. I'm married to a building envelope engineer, so watch out.
Oh, all right. Good.
Wow.
Good to
I don't
know.
want to see any leaking.
Good to know. No, we thought it would be nice. It is a good question, Kat. We haven't really focused that much on kind of the view of the building from that side. But we thought getting rid of that big triangular skylight and sort of restoring the original volume that was there would be quite nice. So that was some of our thinking.
I have a question for the intervening period between now and when we go to town meeting, mostly around fundraising. As we contemplate the major donors that we might solicit funds from, we might have questions about different parts of the building and what will be done, what we could highlight. Will you be available for us to ask questions about that?
Oh, of course. Yeah, absolutely. I think we owe you contractually, attending the town meeting. But certainly between now and then, anything you need, to support your fundraising efforts, we can assist with. We've done plenty of these types of projects. We know how critical these early stages are, and are committed to doing whatever we can to help you all through that.
Great, thank you.
So I don't know, Lisa, if you were hinting at thinking about donor opportunities, if that's the right word, but identifying some of those types of spaces, we could certainly help with that. Yeah. And if we need to, getting back to Jim's inquiry and some of the feedback that we were hearing in the forum about, the character of the addition, if we need to take a potentially another pass at that exterior rendering, because I think, Jim, it's a really good point. One, yes, I think that, that level of design is something that can and likely should wait to further in the design process. But also your point about, showing something that people can support and get behind. I mean, that's equally important. And I think, showing the same rendering in May that they saw in November, well, I don't know if that's strategic. We might want to tune that up in some way. So we can talk about that.
We can, hedge when we show it. But a little bit of marketing, this is, partially marketing. So I just think it needs a little bit of massaging. By the way, I like it the way it is. I agree with you. I think it shows off the turret. I think it shows off the proportions of the old building. I like it, but I heard other comments.
I like it too, but I don't know like what the subsection of people were too that attended that meeting. I know to Jim's point, like the people that were at the forum are probably the people that have always supported the library. I think you'll get a wider swath of opinions at the actual town meeting, but it'll be interesting to see. And again, yeah, we need to, the people that were at the meeting hopefully will also contribute to fundraising.
Oh,
Were you going to say something, Brian?
I thought about it, but it can wait until the designLAB guys are gone.
Oh, okay.
It's not. I mean, you guys are welcome to stick around for the question, but there's no way you guys know the answer to it.
Okay, that's fine.
Well, does anybody have any other questions or comments for designLAB before?
Sorry, one more question for designLAB. I'm so sorry. I know you're going to hate me, but it's just so I can like absorb all this information.
No, of course.
Also for design C, what you have shown in the rendering right now, the right-hand side is not brick, correct? It's like something different, like a granite or like a different kind of facade. Is that correct?
What
we
we were thinking of, I mean, I think one of the tragedies with one of the many tragedies of the 70s edition is they removed some of the stone that was visible in the base of this Richardsonian style building, and any of these you see, and particularly those by Richardson himself in Northeaston, where he did both Oaks Ames Hall and the library there. The idea was the buildings kind of grow out of the ground and the rock is exposed. So I think a natural complementary material would be to use stone and stone walls. It's part of the rural heritage of the area. So that would be a good choice, I think, because the problem with making it all brick building, then you're trying to mimic the existing building, and we're in the position that the building is a beautiful historical piece, and we should be deferential to it. So that was the idea. It's intentionally contemporary, but its form, its proportion relates to the original building. So while it has a glass facade, what Ben and Andrew started to work on, I think really carefully, is to pull the tall vertical proportions of the windows in the original building, and it's kind of patterning through. So what we show here is just the idea. It's not fully developed, of a kind of wood screen that's kind of like shutters, if you would imagine, wood shutters with the glass that gives it a certain scale and character, related, to the original building, again, without exactly mimicking it. So that's sort of the attitude, if you will, not fully developed, but
That's great. I mean, even you just saying like the thing about the foundation being stone, like I didn't know that. I'm sure you told us ahead. I mean, before, I just forgot, but now.
No, I'm not sure we ever got to a full description of it, but that was our thinking on the design team.
Right. Okay. Cool. Thank you.
And Kat, if you're looking for just some speaking points, there's also direction from the Department of the Interior on how to like address historical buildings. We work on a lot of registered historical buildings,
Yeah.
and you're actually not supposed to use the same material
Ah,
that the original building was built out of. So you are really supposed to separate these two elements.
perfect.
Yeah,
Thank
a lot
you.
of conservationism is like that, where the new piece, it can look like it, but it should not be made out of the same materials, such that if you ever have to go back and do a renovation again, you can clearly disambiguate the line between the old and the new.
Correct. Yeah.
I wouldn't want it all brick anyways, but I just want some talking points for the haters. Thank you.
All right, well,
Okay.
unless Kat has any additional questions.
All
I'm
good
kidding.
questions.
We'll say thank you to designLAB for this evening. And
Thank
Very
you so
welcome.
much, guys.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah,
And
I do hope
have a nice holiday.
You
have a
as
nice
well.
holiday. Thank you.
Thank you.
I do hope we see you all again. Tina, I'm sure we'll be in communication. It's been such a pleasure over the past, it's hard to believe, whatever it's been, almost 5 months. So
Yeah.
thank you very much. And what's that?
I was just going to say, thank you for hanging in there because I just found out I haven't paid you anything. So I'll get right on that.
Oh, I wasn't gonna bring that up, Tina. No, it's quite all right. It's been a joy. We do hope the process continues. Have a wonderful holiday season, and certainly if you need anything, you know how to reach us.
Very much.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Happy
Bye.
holidays.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Sorry about that. I never know if I've already asked a question or not, but I don't remember the answers, and people have asked me again, so I'm like, oh, I need to
Yeah.
I
refresh
think
my
it's
memory.
really-
Those are good. Good questions.
Yeah,
We'll
Kathy-
definitely send you after the haters.
Yeah.
yeah.
Kat, the only reason I knew that, one of my best friends from college is a career professional historic preservationist,
Okay.
and she works for the John Adams Museum. And I was like, and she's like, oh yeah, and she's telling me all this stuff about the Randall Library. I'm like, you know more about this building, and I've lived there for 3 years.
I would say that if anybody has the chance to go to Somerville and look at the West Branch, their solution, although smaller than what's proposed for us, is very similar in that in the juxtaposition of the two styles. And you can see how nicely they meshed it, particularly inside the building where the walls of the old building are exposed within the new space. So it feels like they blend together much better than the two buildings we have right now.
Well, and it looked like that's what they had on the rendering, that when they showed from the new children's section, on option C anyways, when they showed the new children's section in, you could see the brick from the existing building, and it just gives you that, nice historic aspect.
Right.
And really makes it feel like it's one building, even though it's
Right.
the old and the new.
So I guess we can have a discussion about which option we want to present to town meeting, but I'm willing to hear any comments. Jim has weighed in that he likes option C.
Is there anyone that doesn't like option C? We'll start with that.
There we go. Cut to the chase.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just the point. Is like so option C, my own bet, is on par with fixing the damage that we know currently exists with the 1970s edition. It absolves us of anything we don't know about the 1970s edition, and is in no way more expensive. That's just from a pure efficiency standpoint, the best use of town money.
No, I definitely very enthusiastic for C. I mean, it's obviously the only option overall of, we can't build onto what's there. That's a waste of time. So practically, but also visually. I like it. I like it. I think, what happens with Common Road will be important to the overall experience there. So we'll see on that, and I guess we'll talk about the money.
Yeah.
But no, very, very enthusiastic for C.
I don't have anything to add that Peter hasn't just said. So.
Same here.
Me too.
Well, so.
All right, so do we need to make a motion? Do we need to make a motion and vote? Is that what happens next?
Hey, you can do that first.
So do you want to present the motion, Kat?
I propose that we vote option C to present to the town as the Randall Library renovation project. I don't know. Is that what I'm supposed to say?
We actually
Well,
proposing.
are we presenting to the town or the town administrator?
Town administrators.
Okay.
No, I don't think so. I think the charge was to present to town meeting. I
Yeah.
think your proposal is what's, I'm
Oh,
in
okay.
support of option C, so, but I
Right.
believe the charge was to present to town meeting.
Okay.
All right.
So do I-
All those in favor?
I second. I'll second that.
All those in favor, Kat
Aye.
Aye.
and Jim, Lisa,
Aye.
Tina, aye.
Okay. So can I ask a question of the group then, of part of the comments that came up this evening? Do you think there should be a different rendering that we've asked designLAB to tweak at all that will be the design that goes forward? Do you think there should be some focus on changing the facade a little bit in the new edition? Or based on what was said tonight, are you comfortable that that is the rendering that will be marketed?
I think it's a little tough. Like I couldn't understand, like I actually didn't understand that the glass had like wood over it or whatever they were describing tonight. So I think that's a little bit confusing, but I don't know how other people feel.
I have to say, I came into tonight not liking the way the glass looked, but it's funny, the more I looked at it tonight, and because I visited Somerville, I forgot that the side, like it's the front is glass, but the side is that stone and the back, and I actually like it more than I did. I do want to get away from all that, brick that you see in option B. So I don't know. I mean, there were a lot of comments and feedback that I got about the whole glass and how it didn't blend, but I actually do think it blends.
If I may, I think I actually like again, having been near and through the Somerville West Branch Library, and really looking at it and appreciating that the glass facade is really appears to only be a single side of the new structure. I think the biggest issue may simply be the resolution of the image that was presented, because it was pushed onto a slide with a whole bunch of other information. So you can't, like, it looked a lot nicer when he blew it up to 200% for us tonight. So I think, from my perspective at least, just getting a slightly cleaner, more high resolution image to pitch with is probably what we need, because that way people can actually get an appreciation for, like you said, Kat, you couldn't really tell what the wood versus the glass versus the stone facade was. We couldn't really get a feeling for the materials they were using. Having something where you could clearly see that in either scale or resolution would go a really long way in helping people feel more comfortable with the design.
What does the Somerville do that exact same thing? Like, do we have a picture of that? Like do they use the exact same design?
You can go to the designLAB website and look at their projects, and they have many pictures of that project.
Like but did they use that same like glass with wood on top?
Yeah.
They did. Okay, so I mean that would be good to present too then, at least a picture of what it is gonna look like.
And their proposal book. too.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
the
I have that
stone-
at the office too.
The stone they use is a little bit blonder at the Somerville Library because the original building color is a little bit yellowish.
Yeah.
And so that part is a little bit different, but the design is similar for sure.
Jim, did you want to say something?
Well, in response to Denise's question,
Yeah.
based on the discussion we had tonight and the committee's reaction, I don't necessarily think we need a different rendering with different materials. designLAB will be there. Sounds to me like they can defend the inevitable question. I like the whole Richardsonian thing. But I do think we need more renderings, because at both meetings where this has been discussed, the same questions have come up, and the public forum questions reflected those questions. People want to know more about, we need one more rendering that has a better view of that new addition. And I'm sure they can make it look as attractive as possible. And we need a rendering that answers the question that's now been asked twice about the sloping ceiling by the children's library.
Yeah, and another question I even asked that we haven't even talked about is there's an entrance on Crescent Street. And they haven't really talked about that side. It's not significant, but I'm pretty sure that will be eliminated because we'll no longer need it, because we'll have
The main entrance.
we'll have the other main entrance, right?
Yeah.
So Jim, are you saying
there
that
it is.
perhaps a view from
Crescent.
standing in the town green, looking at the building,
Yeah.
what that addition would look like,
And
rather
then-
than from the corner of Library
Right.
Hill
Right,
and
and then
Common?
one from the old fire station.
I think you almost need a 360-degree view.
Yeah,
Like what it would look like from Library Street head on, what it would look like from the Common. I think you really need to see,
yeah.
because I agree, when he kept talking about the sloped wall and then I put the skylight, I would not call what's there today a skylight. The fact that he kept referring to that sloped glass as a skylight was, I mean, I agree with you, Kat, I was kind of confused at what he was saying. Is it a ledge? Is it a window? What are they proposing?
That's
on
some
it?
sort of like specific term for the skylight.
Light
that
well.
A light well, which I didn't know what that meant either. So, but I thought he was saying white well. So I was like, I don't know what that.
Those
That's
things
what I
that when
thought
you're
it
in
was
your
saying, white well.
basement and your basement has a window at ground level, that's a light well too, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think those are
That's
all
what I-
really good ideas.
And I think even coming up Common Road, like what is the back of the addition?
Yeah.
I mean, if it's not glass, is that stone? Does the stone carry around the back so that,
Yeah.
Mhm.
what is the material there? So that you could see that it's not glass on two sides.
When we have entertained affordable housing proposals, there's like a book of renderings, because I think it's called CAD. It's a computer
Yes.
program. Now, maybe these are original watercolors. I don't know.
They are.
They are.
Okay, they
Yeah.
do look that way, but I mean, perhaps they could do some stuff in CAD.
Yeah.
That could also approximate it. I don't think we can, I mean, my bottom line is we can't go to town meeting or the fundraising with one pretty watercolor.
Mm.
I agree. I think it's crucial on both of those fronts. And I'm sure they have the software. That's what they work on all day. So, yeah, I think we should insist on a good media presentation, because it's where we lost a lot of momentum last time. Pictures didn't look good, and it was kind of the beginning of the end of it. So, but I think as is just pointed out, there's legitimate questions about all four sides of it. So, maybe they can even have a 3D modeling thing that they can move around or something. I don't know, but we cannot come up weak in that department.
One of the concerns though I have, and this is Tina and I were laughing at one point today, because they just sent us the bill for 100% design, and the way they were discussing it tonight, they're done. It seems like they're done until town meeting. So we need to go back. I need to look at the original proposal and the contract to see, because I actually told Tina, do not pay the full amount, even if it's $1,000 we're holding, because I don't consider them done until a vote happens at town meeting in the ballot.
So I'm glad you raised that, because that's kind of where I was going. Because I was getting the impression that, they're not just saying goodbye for the holidays, they're saying goodbye until May.
Yes, they are.
And, the message I was trying to send is, I don't feel like we're ready. I love where we are, but I don't
No,
feel like we're
There's a
ready.
lot of work to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, but the bill that came in, and that's why I said to Tina, did you see the bill? It was 100%. She goes, I haven't paid any bills. So they sent us a bill for the full project.
Yeah.
So we have to work on that a little bit.
Yeah, I think we need to see what we asked them for in the deliverables,
Yes.
because I think that it's possible they've delivered what we asked them to deliver.
But
Well, it talks about meetings, it talks about town meeting. It doesn't
definitely does.
specify the number of drawings, but
Mm.
Right.
I mean, we certainly could, talk to them about, an additional cost if we needed to do these additional drawings or renderings or meet with us another. There was not a number of meetings, so I think we could certainly meet with them again.
Yeah.
But we could talk about additional drawings if we needed to.
I think they pretty clearly heard from all the participants and from the follow-up feedback about the questions about it. So hopefully they wouldn't balk at the 360 view of the building as a, as a sales tool.
I can't imagine they've only done one picture of their projects in the past either. There must be something that they've done more than
Yeah,
just
even if
one.
it's just line drawing,
Yeah.
from a CAD program.
But yeah, I would like to see what their idea is from the back,
Right.
where
Right.
that old barber shop is or whatever in that
Right.
land.
When, I was mentioning to you, just driving down Common Road now in the winter, when the lights are on in the building, I never realized how much glass is on the back side of that building. For all the times I've gone by that space. It was kind of funny to think about it that way.
Yeah.
And I am completely confused about the square footage. And I heard what he said about people are fixated on it. I am, but when you buy real estate, you fixate on square footage.
You do.
And at the last meeting, and don't get me wrong, I don't for a second think that they're misleading us or that they don't know what they're talking about. I clearly just don't get it. They definitely said 500 square feet less. But now I'm looking at this chart, it's a minimum of 2,000 more.
Well, they switched how they're presenting it. So they presented it as overall square footage, which we would lose 500 feet. So then they changed the sales tactics. So now what they were presenting to you, that 5,500 is the starting point. That's of usable square footage. So they've done some sort of calculation to increase the overall usable square footage. But at the same time, that design C is still 500 square feet smaller than our existing building. So
Right.
they did change the way that they presented it. And they did that at the public forum, so I wasn't going to call it. I mean, I wasn't going to call it out, but I was like, oh, that's interesting. I just had some follow-up questions about it. So,
Right, because in the 1975 edition, there is no second floor, so there is no usable space for the entire ceiling. But when you add a new edition that has 2 floors of usable space, that's what you add it.
Sure.
Because obviously it's total square footage currently, but it's not usable. You can't. So that's,
Can't go where
so they
there's no
did, so they
floor.
changed what they were reporting on
Yeah.
because of that.
but they've already presented that to the trustees, and the trustees have already either, they've voiced their opinions. Like this information is already out in the community, so that's why I just wanted to get some more messaging around that and understand it better for myself, at least when it comes to fundraising and defending the proposals that we chose. That's all.
Well, I think that as people ask you questions, this is an advertisement for a new page on the town website, on the building committee's website, on the town pages, where we've put every presentation, both the slides, the recording of the meeting, and the minutes are all there. So refer people, particularly to this meeting where they went into more detail about those parts. People can just watch the meeting and hear the information for themselves, if you think that will help persuade them.
I do think we need to get Frank on board, the building inspector, because he will get asked, how much do you spend annually on maintenance of the 1975 edition? He needs to be prepared to answer that question. That got asked 10 years ago.
I don't think Frank spends anything. It's all coming out of Tina's budget right now.
Well,
Facilities have not been covering what needs to happen at the library. They've been making the library cover those expenses. So
Okay.
they're not, there's little things that they're taking care of, but it won't be as easy to get that because it's coming from different sources.
okay, but if we could spend some effort trying to get that, I mean, he needs to be on board with the general message. Craig's bottom line was, it's not gonna fall down tomorrow, but it's always gonna be in the net. I'm never gonna be able to solve that water problem.
Yeah, and from my conversations with Frank, that's clearly, I don't believe his same reaction. He understands that there's a problem there, and everything that he's doing, so there have been, he's gotten a roofer in, he's brought in some other contractors to try and Band-Aid things. But I think as far as my conversations with him, he knows that something major needs to happen there.
Okay,
And I assume if we say to him, what makes more sense, renovating the existing structure or tearing it down and building a new structure? I would have to think he would say tearing it down, because he
Okay.
knows the kind of problems that we've been having, just since he's been here in July. I mean, it's been one thing after another.
Okay. We
I
just
mean,
need
now,
to.
now we can't even keep the doors closed when the wind blows, the exterior doors blow open when it's windy out. I mean, it's just.
And now my lift is broken and I have mice and bats, so we're good.
I mean, it's a good thing we're hitting like the still wind part of the year, right? Where there's no gusts of cold air blowing through.
Balmy time
Yeah,
of year.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I mean, it's, you can't make it up,
Hey,
because
the
every
heat's
week it's
working,
something
though.
new.
Now, don't exit.
All right, well,
So Denise, is that you talking to them about additional renderings, or is it that Tina?
Yeah, I think
addressing
Tina and
that?
I mean,
Okay.
we'll look at the contract, we'll look at the
Yeah.
original RFP. But I know I pulled it up when I got the 100% bill, like I was a bit shocked when I saw it come through, so. I know that they've met sort of the targets they were supposed to, but where we didn't say one rendering, we didn't have specifics.
No,
I think
I
if we
don't think-
said,
Mhm.
you know, could you do a few more for us to present? Obviously, it's in their best interest
Right,
to provide a few more renderings, to have them look nice, because then we'd want to stay with them to design the full, that's where they're gonna make their money. So it's in their best interest to do a few more drawings for us, and help us market it and bring it to town meeting.
When do we start that procurement? Wait until the town meeting vote or do it ahead of time contingent on town meeting vote?
He legally cannot put out a procurement unless there's money available.
Okay.
So, but that's all them. designLAB will do the full bidding process. They'll do everything.
Okay.
And they won't be able to, so with the full design, we technically don't need to procure it. It's engineering services. We could just say, we're gonna do a new contract with designLAB. We would
Oh,
not have to do a full procurement.
Okay.
But we cannot do any of that, whether we wanted to or not, until, or if it passes town meeting and the ballot.
so I had another question. When they mentioned, if you choose to go with us for this design, would it be unusual that we would now say, now we've got an idea, let's go to a different architect firm to build it?
It's not out of the ordinary.
Really?
Depends a lot. Some places don't, you know,
Wow.
have problems going through the design phase. They're not happy with it. So
Oh.
they take those drawings and go someplace else.
Didn't we do that with town building?
I don't know. Did you?
I think so.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think most of the time he was, excuse me, referring to it passing at town meeting. Yeah, the funding coming on, but yeah, he did
I mean,
say that as well.
if it's a good working relationship, and I do think it is, I think designLAB is by far the best choice that we could have made. You know, but that's why it's in their best interest to do whatever they can for us, because they want the job.
Right.
They want it to pass, they want it to be successful, they want the work, and then they want to put us in their portfolio.
Portfolio, yeah. For the next pitch.
There's something that we need to do now, between now and when like town meeting is, right? Don't we have to file some stuff before March or something like that in order to get things onto the ballot? Like onto the
Warrant.
The
document,
warrant.
the
Yeah,
warrant?
well,
if you-
Yeah, it's the select board that can add a question to the ballot. So the board will have to at some point vote to support the project and put it forward to town meeting and the ballot.
So what do we do on our end? Like, what is our next step in terms of like what we're supposed to do for that? I just don't want to miss the deadline or anything like that. So I'm just curious, like, what the next step is for us.
I won't let you miss the deadline, Kat. Have a sitting select board member on the committee, he won't let you miss it either.
Kat, we're being staffed by the library director and the town administrator, so I don't think we need to worry about, I don't think we need to worry about the mechanics of getting it on the town meeting warrant and the ballot. What I think we need to be not worried about, but focused on is fundraising. You know, look at how people responded when we went to town meeting for So Acres and said, you know, look at the other sources of income we have and the commitments. I think we need to do the same thing, even if we don't have the money in hand, the commitments. And we need the marketing materials, and we need to anticipate the questions that are going to come up.
Right.
I think, I just have the feeling this one can be put over the top.
So I have a question about that. In terms of the building committee's work in fundraising, who has limitations based on their other roles in town?
That is a good question.
And I would say, no, but I wouldn't even weigh in. You need to call ethics. I think
Okay.
everyone individually that has a concern should call state ethics and get an opinion. Because it has to do with it's your personal liability. So I would not give an opinion on whether or not you should or should not be fundraising based on what other aspects are going on.
Okay,
And the attorney of the day it should be fairly easy for them to give an opinion. If you say, I'm on this committee, I'm on this committee, but I think it should come from them.
so we should all ask personally, can I do fundraising, or can we call and describe everybody on the board and say
No.
who is
They won't
eligible?
give an opinion
They
about other
won't,
people.
okay.
I'm a state employee.
Yeah, and I did call on this recently, and yeah, we spent nearly an hour on the phone going through every permutation of it. So it was good. But
And
in
what
the end, it's about full disclosure to, well, at least maybe not actually. Fundraising could be a different angle, but generally you disclose whatever your conflicts are, and then your committee can decide if that's a conflict or not. This is a little different. It's a personal thing.
On the subject of fundraising, if I may ask, on Amazon, the Friends of Randall Library is a charity that you can select for Amazon Smile.
Mine.
Is that two things? One, do we know if we still have control over that charity account with Amazon?
Yeah.
We do, and that is the correct one. Cool.
No, the Friends is its own
It's own,
501c.
but he's asking, is it associated with Randall, which it is. It's not associated with this building committee, but it's associated
Right.
with Friends. Yep, that
Right,
money
cool.
goes to Friends.
Perfect. I can push my Christmas orders then.
So,
But to be clear,
Yeah,
the fundraising for the building is different from what the Friends fundraises money for. So yes, push that button because the Friends can use their money. This is a commercial as the new president of the Friends. But money solicited for the building project will have to be handled a little bit differently, and we'll have to see if we can differentiate that with Amazon.
It might not even be worth it to do that because it's not going to be that much money and it'll be a
No, it's a fraction of a penny in the short term, but I plan on being in town for a while, so I figured I would just set it up.
So what I would say are some things that this committee could do or should be doing over the next few months. I think some, just from my experience on building projects, I think you should invite Jonathan Daisy to one of the meetings and have him do a walkthrough of the library with the camera, talking about the deficiencies and show people why there needs to be a new library or a renovated library. Invite people to come in, put a plea out there. Saturdays, members of the building committee will be hanging out and answering your questions in the building. Get people to see it, to walk through it, and to really understand where the problems are, because that's how you're gonna get buy-in. Obviously, there's a lot of people that are patrons of the library anyways, but there are a lot that are not, that are taxpayers that really need to understand, why there needs to be renovations.
What groups are actually doing live meetings? Like, does the COA have in-person meetings, or the Friends of the COA?
They
Is there
both
road
do.
shows that we can be doing?
Yep, so both the Friends and the COA are meeting in person in the Council on Aging currently. So you could ask them if they
Okay.
would meet in your building. I don't think they have members of the public attend, but they are meeting in person. The zoning board meets in person, or they're doing a hybrid, so they would need technology. The select board, but we would need the technology. EDIC, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I don't know that they're doing a hybrid. They may just be meeting in person.
What is that?
The economic development.
Oh, got it.
That might be all that's meeting in person currently.
So this
Green.
committee is on the
Oh,
list.
green advisory, you're right, green
Yeah,
advisory.
well, that'd be- yeah. This committee is on the list of committees that the select board wants to meet with in the spring.
Okay,
I think rather than waiting for either Denise or the chair to extend an invitation, you could offer.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I was going to anyway, because usually I do it once a year. Well, I've
Right.
done it once, but you know what I mean, so I can do that, okay?
yeah, and it should be sooner than the spring,
Yeah.
because we
Right.
could tie it to either the second January meeting or the first February meeting, and really, and then that could be the whole catalyst for you requesting the ballot question.
Do I reach out to the chair of the select board? or
Send me an email.
you, okay.
And is that the nature of that, an update of everything the committee's been doing so far? Or like, what are we doing there?
I'm not sure.
Okay,
I mean, what it has been in the past is just, certainly Tina has been in, and the previous library director has been in, just sort of show and tell about what's going on at the library. Always a big hit, because there's always a lot of stuff going on that we didn't realize was going on.
mhm,
On the building committee, I think, you know, an update on what the problems are with the 1975 edition. I don't think anybody on the board needs to be persuaded at this point. What the fundraising plan is, what the challenges are, what the timeline is.
And I think we could show the rendering of what it would look, of option C. The building committee has chosen this option. This is what we're going forward with.
Hopefully by then there'll be maybe a little bit more, maybe a 360 CAD
Mhm.
thing.
okay.
Right. I mean, the benefit to that is obviously more people watch that meeting and there's more press coverage. So any chance that you get to have that conversation that more people be paying attention to, it's worth it.
Right.
Do we know what we're gonna be asking for at town meeting in terms of structure? There's been an ask of CPC, has been fundraising started. I don't know what the goals are, but then we just gonna go straight to, you know, full bond for whatever is left, which would be, you know, most of this. Is that the plan?
Yeah, no, go ahead.
So Peter, I would envision the ask of town meeting will be very similar to the way Stowe Acres was structured. That it would say, you know, X amount of dollars from fundraising or whatever has been committed at that point. Tina has presented a proposal to CPC. So if they approve it, it would have that amount of money allocated. And then it would say in the remainder of which to be, you know, borrowed through Mass General Law, Chapter 44, section, whatever it is. So that there is sort of a menu option so people can see the different funding sources. And it would be offset by any additional grants, donations, or fundraising efforts.
Yeah, so I don't know what our expectations are there, but we're gonna be asking for 6.5 million, somewhere in that neighborhood, so. We'll need
So
a
the
good
trust-
pitch, but no, I'm
So-
optimistic as well.
The trustees have committed 500,000. We've asked the Hale Fund, we've asked the Hale Fund to match that 500,000. And Tina and I are meeting with them again next week. Tina's CPC proposal is $1 million in total to be paid out over 3 years. So if all of that comes through, we're looking at 2 million, which won't go unnoticed by the taxpayer.
Right.
And then obviously any fundraising or any other donations that we're able to acquire, or gifts for that matter, that we're able to acquire.
So, yeah, sorry, I was just going to add that there has, a fundraising group did meet last week and a marketing group is meeting next week. So the ball is starting to roll slowly, so hopefully that'll gain momentum.
I mean, just like with Stowe Acres, there was a cap on the town's commitment, and then there was a gap that fundraising had to make up. And in fact, you know, that's a subject of much discussion right now, is exactly how that gap is going to be filled. So, you know, I would expect the same thing here, that there'll be a very realistic level at which the town's commitment tops out, and that there'll be some gap that will have to be made up by fundraising.
So I'm curious about that. So when they went to the town, did they have a plan for how much they were trying to fundraise? So they asked the town for a specific amount
Yeah,
that did not protect them against not raising enough money privately.
they had commitments for other stuff, so they knew they were going to get it,
Mhm.
but there was about $1 million that is still a bit of a question mark.
And that's because they weren't confident it would pass if they asked the town for it, or
They didn't want to ask the town for more than
for that much
Right,
money?
so
I
it
see,
it was
okay.
a twofold. I mean, so first, they didn't want to drain all of the CPC
Right.
funds, the
Right.
PPA funds.
Okay.
And then there's a lot of optimism for receiving some grants. But the concern would be is if we did not, for Stowe, because if we don't receive all the money in grants, we need to make that up somehow.
Right.
So then there was a commitment of fundraising.
So can you go to the town and say, like, say we raise $2.5 million? Can we ask the town for the balance? But if we continue to fundraise, just offset the town's commitment?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because you would not, so even if the town votes $6 million, first of all, it's not gonna be borrowed all at once,
Right.
because it's a 3-year project, so we would borrow it in increments. And then you wouldn't borrow the last piece until you really knew what we needed to finish the project.
Got
So if money could continue to come in over 2 or 3 years.
Mhm.
And then at the last borrowing, you say, oh, well, we only need 100,000 and not $1 million because we've gotten this extra funding.
Got it. Okay. Thank
Is
you.
there any update like from that, like, oh, this is a question for Denise, but like from that school that's coming in, did they offer any money towards, potential library building, like especially if we're, gonna have a teen room and stuff like that their students may use?
But we're still going through that process.
Okay. Cool. Just was wondering if there's any update.
No, not yet.
Okay, if we're done with the building conversation, we can approve minutes. So we have the October 28th, we'll do first.
I move to approve the October 28th minutes.
Second.
There was one I wasn't there. I'm trying to find it.
Okay,
I've got them open. Jim, you were at the, oh, shoot.
Said when I left at 8:45.
yeah. Or just this.
Yeah,
Oh,
so,
okay.
can you have vote? Can you say why? No.
I can vote for the whole thing. Okay. Is there a second? I'll second.
Yeah, Brian seconded. So Tina, do you want to do roll call?
Yeah, sure, so, Kat,
Yay.
okay, Brian,
Yay.
Yay.
Lisa,
Yes.
Tina, yes, and Jim?
Yep.
Okay. And then we'll move on to the November 18th minutes.
I move to approve the November 18th minutes.
Do I have a
Second.
Okay. Peter
Yes.
and
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Tina, yes, and Jim wasn't here, right?
I'll abstain.
Okay, so Jim abstained.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very
So
much.
we're approved, and if that's all, I can adjourn the meeting with the motion.
No, I would set a meeting.
Oh, you want to do it right
Yeah.
now?
I would get that on the calendar
Okay.
because quite frankly, right after the holidays, you're gonna have to start meeting with the finance committee, you're gonna have to meet with capital improvements. You're really gonna have to,
We need a
so I would
plan.
get at least something scheduled.
Okay, so I'm looking at January.
My schedule gets significantly more complicated after the 10th.
So how about the 6th?
Beautiful.
Anything that week after New Year's? Typically, we've been doing Wednesday or Thursdays. If that works, or Tuesday, I mean, well, I think Tuesday's the trustee, Tuesday's the trustee meeting. Tuesday, the 4th, so.
Do anything.
Wednesday, yeah, the Wednesday's, I mean, I already have it in my calendar as a
Yep.
meeting.
Works for me.
Wednesday, the 5th?
Wednesday the 5th.
Okay,
Okay.
Peter, is that good for you?
Wednesday, January 5th. Should be just fine.
I'll get in touch with Morgan. She couldn't be here tonight, so. Okay,
Yep.
everyone.
All right.
Would
Big
you
I
like-
make
day.
a motion. I make
Hey,
a motion to adjourn.
Second.
thank you very much, everybody.
All right, thank you. Great job.
Holidays. Good night.